Sorry, $5.5 million a year is done.
Now, I'm not going to take up your time on the video I shot of Dave Fernandez, the proprietor of Trader's Pub on Flagler Avenue. He's a boyhood friend of the mayor.
Yeah.
He just got a $60,000 grant with the mayor's blessing and the unanimous vote of the city commission.
And I will say this, that's between the mayor and his city council.
But does that concern you as the county chair, that they come to you and say, we need for this, this, and this, and yet he's taking care of his friends?
That's part of the reason why we're saying no more CRAs.
If I told you that this mayor had a previous situation where he had another friend appointed to the CRA board, piggybacked for his family construction company, Barrage Construction, to get a grant, then it was determined that the grant was illegal, yet the mayor got his money because the CRA guy had to pay him out of his own pocket. This is the stuff that you don't see in the daily newspaper or in the public. Why do you suppose that is? Is it because of all the money that's changing hands with advertising for the CRAs?
You know, I don't want to accuse the mayor of anything, any mayor, whether he, without a court of appeal or a law or something. I really don't want to accuse a mayor of anything.
He's already got enough accusations. He's got like 4 or 5 ethics violations. I've heard dealing with right now.
I, for one, whenever we do a project on the county side, I look over who's going to do the county project, and I'm doing my best to make sure that we don't have any, shall we say, conflicts of interest in any kind of contracts that are going on. So, I mean, I'm really being very due diligent on it. Hey, wait a minute, is there a conflict here? And I ask, get with the county attorney, we make sure he comes up with a point of law. No, this is okay, this is okay, this is okay. So, if there's a conflict of interest, that's really not for me to decide. It's not for me to really.
But don't you need to have the policies and the guidelines in place to prevent these future abuses?
Oh, see, that's the.
But I mean, isn't that what the stricter CRA guidelines would do?
Well, the stricter CRA guidelines will.
They're not going to allow for street parties and commingling CRA echo grants and.
You want a CRA, you have to come to the county in the new law, and you will have to have specifics, costs, who's doing it, where it's going to go, what's going to happen. I mean, we just really finited the process to where it's like, you don't just come and say, I want money. Because the First Bank of Volusia County is closed. You're going to have to come to us with a very viable something and prove to us that there's going to be economic development over a long-term process. This is not just a bankroll that you get to go play with. And the money we give you will be used for that project. If it's not, we have the right in the new legislation to cancel CRA.
This whole thing about US 1 from Ormond all the way down to Edgewater, it's very strategic of the municipal leaders to say, here's a stretch that we can each get a piece of the pie.
Right.
And yet there's these side streets and things with businesses that benefit them where they'll get enhancements along the way.
I'll use one of my council members' terms. We got to quit putting lipstick on a pig. It's still a pig. You can put a dress on a pig. It's still a pig. It's going to be a funny looking pig, but it's still a pig. I don't care what you do. You can dress up US 1 all you want. You can, and it's still US 1. And when you go one block north or south or east or west of it, you're going to run into the same situation.
And wrapping this up, until 2 years ago, when the Nicole Carney scandal erupted, that was the former director of Southeast Volusia Ad Authority, who basically appointed herself as director. She was a board member, and took over the thing and paid herself twice what she was supposed to get, allegedly. Supposedly, FDLE's investigating, but it hasn't gone anywhere. The county has liens, but she doesn't own property.
Well, I have to tell you this legally. I cannot comment on that because it is actually open and still under investigation. I've checked into it. It is an active investigation, and I can't comment.
Until 2 years ago, actually, these same groups for these street parties were double dipping. They'd get $10,000, $12,000 in the CRA. They get another $10,000, $12,000 in the Ad Authority. The documents that you see them side by side, they're verbatim. One hand wasn't talking to the other.
We're having conversations with the ad authorities right now, and I've already talked with all 3 of the executive directors, and I've pointed out one thing. They are ad authorities. they're not banks, and they need to quit giving money out of their coffers, out of their budget, to go support balloon fests. That's not advertising. Or to support beer parties. That's not advertising. You use the money you're given to do what you are supposed to do, which is advertise Volusia County so that people will see it and come here and go to sleep in our hotels at night, and we can get a hotel tax and we can put the money back into their, because that's where all that money goes. It goes right into their budget so that they can bring more business, more tourism, more residents, more people to Volusia County.
I kind of laugh when I see things like a calendar listing for pancakes in the park, and yet you have Daytona 500, the Coke 0400, the Budweiser Shootout, whatever it's called now, Bike Week, Biketoberfest. I mean, these are big ticket events where you get hundreds of thousands of people conceivably coming here, maybe not all staying in a hotel, but people in campgrounds, a lot of people coming for the day from Greater Orlando. They're at least taking care of the restaurants.
Right, and that's economic development. $1.6 billion a year comes into the county through the racetrack, and it goes to the hotels, it goes to the restaurants, it goes to the little knick-knack holders, the sellers on the side of the road. It goes for gasoline, it goes for Cokes and sodas and clothes and T-shirts and all the paraphernalia. That is economic development.
Now, in wrapping this up,
I know do it every year. They do it all year round.
I know you're new. You got elected by a huge majority of plurality of 20,000 plus people. Derek Henry, the mayor of Daytona Beach, when Glenn Ritchie retired, Mayor Henry was new. He's trying to pick up where Ritchie left off and trying to encourage more economic development. Ritchie was very savvy about trying to get as much of the infrastructure. Like, you know, there are a lot of good projects that Daytona has done. You know, let's not take one night of drinking on Main Street and cloud the fact that there's been a lot of, you know, I'm the one bringing this to the table, but to be fair, Daytona has done a lot of bricks and mortar.
There's been a lot of bricks and mortar. There's coming up, there's going to be some more bricks and mortar.
But when you have something like a potential E-zone, if you have these kinds of big block parties, how does that segue into economic rebirth? I don't get it.
Where do you think the E-zone is going to be? I mean, what's the question?
Well, it's supposed to be Main Street,
no,
Atlantic Avenue.
E-zone's not going there. The E-zone is going to be over at the racetrack. They're already working on their E-zone, which is their economic engine. They're putting the money into it. They're getting everything permitted. Their project is starting to move forward.
And you're a big supporter of that.
And I'm a huge supporter of the racetrack doing an E-zone. I'm not a supporter of the government getting involved in a private industry. We did it. We did it with the Ocean Center. It has been an absolute $126 million disaster. We put $50–80 million already in Sunrail. We are now in the railroad business. It has been an absolute disaster. I'm tired of going into our government, having our government getting into private industry. Private industry wants to build an E-zone, buy the land, get the permits, get your funding on your own, and do it. Don't come to the county. We don't have the money. We're not going to spend for it. We cannot even fix our jail. We cannot build and add on to our jail right now because we have to take the money we set aside for that and rotate it back into the budget just so that we can make sure that the law-abiding citizens of this county, because they don't have a car, can get up, go to the corner, and get on a bus and go to work. So this ridiculous notion of just throwing money around because we're the county government doesn't work. We've got to cut back. We have got to watch our spending, and controlling spending is the only way we're going to get the budget of Volusia County under control.
If you remember when we were doing the public candidate debates that Headline Surfer did last year, and you were in 2 of them, you remember me asking about the American Music Festival and Daytona State College, and it seemed to me that do you think the lesson's been learned? I mean,
no, the lesson's not been learned.
$13 million in naming rights for the News Journal Center. Throw in another $14 million in CRA and Ad Authority and whatever Echo for the News Journal Center. News Journal Center, right? Not the Ocean Center. That's not mentioned anymore. The News Journal Center. It's sitting there and
Well, it's actually being run now by Daytona State College. They own classes out there. Now it's an extension
About
of the
$27 million.
Yes, I
14 million
understand.
in taxpayer
I
money.
understand that, but it's now an extension of the Daytona Beach campus. They use it for, they're doing like what I used to do, radio classes and multimedia classes and newscast. They do all that stuff there, and that's what they're teaching there. That's what's that building's being used for most of the time. They still have their plays and their concerts and all that.
Let me ask you this, how are these street parties really any different than the American Music Festival,
No.
where all this taxpayer money was thrown into this thing that was going to be the Nirvana? We're going to get all these Justin Bieber and Janet Jackson, and here we ended up with Usher and that song, Yeah. Total disaster.
It's a disaster, and it's like this.
Have we learned our lessons yet?
I learned the lesson. I watched it happen, and I was like, gee, that's ridiculous. Man, I'm glad I'm not involved. Now I am involved, and you know what? My lesson that I learned from that is, don't let that happen anymore.